He goes, he's our mate, he's your mate. It's his third time going around on TGC, and this time he does so as Victoria's newly minted coach. It's Chris Rogers. Buck, welcome back to the Grade Cricketer.
Thanks, boys. I was meant to answer the call 30 minutes earlier, but I completely forgot about you, so not a great start, was it?
Oh, no, but, it just reinforces the hierarchy, so that's fine. We're used to it. We're going to kick off and say congratulations on the Victorian coaching job. Obviously, COVID's here, and our beloved Chapel Street's dead. How are you coping?
Yeah, it's pretty tough at the moment. Not as bad as Higo, obviously, living solo along there, but yeah, I'm a bit disappointed in some of my favourite haunts are locked down at the moment, but we'll just have to wait till they come back.
Like obviously, Pez said at the top, you've just been given the Victorian coaching job, and you have been given it as well. But I want to know, how, what happens in a cricket coaching job interview? Because it's a bit different to a footy club, isn't it? Or a soccer team, whatever. You can talk more about, I guess, formations and tactics and rosters and all that sort of thing. Whereas cricket coaching is a bit more opaque about, what are the ins and outs are. So, what happens in a cricket coaching job interview? What's the first question?
And are you wearing a suit?
Yeah, and your baggy green.
Well, it was all on Zoom, so right. I could wear. I didn't even have to have pants on, really, but but no, put a shirt on. Try to do the right thing. But yeah, look, you're just presenting to panels. For the big job, I presented to a couple of different panels. There was kind of more the people who were directly involved in the team first up, and then kind of people more on the board the second time around. So yeah, just I guess from their point of view, they just want to get a sense of who you are and what you stand for, and then whether they're keen to invest in you and your own growth. So. Yeah, that was probably the sense I got out of it.
And so you say present, so you have to literally put together a presentation, like a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, I had to do all that. I've got pretty good at PowerPoints these days, so learned a lot over the last period. But yeah, so you basically present, and then they ask you questions. So.
Nice. Well, don't say too much more about that. I got one for you, just from a coaching philosophy standpoint. Like we've heard over the journey over the last couple of years, but it's always been a case. Say in New South Wales, they sort of have a stated aim with their cricket to just produce as many Test players as possible, or as many Australian players as possible. And we've even heard there's been players who have been, say, the top run scorer or have the highest average that might be getting on in their career who would be dropped because they feel like someone else might be a better chance of playing for Australia. Is that the same attitude that you would take into the Victorian coaching role, or is it more about winning now?
I think it's a fine balance. I think Victoria probably historically have been a little bit about let's win it, and if we get success, then the players will go on to play for Australia, but probably haven't had that kind of pathway. So now there's a sense of let's see if we can get a number of these players who are going on to play for Australia and be permanent fixtures. So it's a fine balance, because it's not like going in all with the kids, because who are they? They're going to learn off, and getting beaten regularly doesn't help either. So I think it's just about just being aware of what you're trying to do and how you can balance that out. So, I mean, for us, we've got 14 guys, I think I calculated, who are kind of 22 and younger, and only one of them is 22. So we've got a really young group, and then it's making sure that they're not completely exposed. They want to be surrounded by some good senior players. So and where they're still experiencing success. So that's probably a long-winded answer of saying it's a bit of both.
Circuits this year, big circuits, yeah. Like I was going to ask you, because we saw during the week that Ian Bell announced his retirement, playing there for Warwickshire. I mean, you would have come across him for a number of years, obviously in Ashes series as well, but obviously on the county circuit as well. Funny guy, because 22 Test hundreds, amazing record, average 42, a bit less than what you might have otherwise suspected, but he's won 5 different national series, like an amazing player. Like, I mean, how good was he? Like, how good was he to play against? He scored heaps of runs against Australia, especially in 2013. I think he got over 500 runs in the Ashes series then. Stacks of runs county level. I mean, how good was he?
Yeah, he was I wasn't expecting to be talking up a pom on this. But there you go.
How shit was he?
It was a fellow ginger, so I'll say yeah, really good. But look, he was obviously a class player, and he played a lot of cricket. I always have a lot of respect for people who have that longevity, because it is a tough game. But yeah, very good player, very easy on the eye. Got it done a little bit against us, as you said, in 2013. I actually remember that series because it was the first one back in, and I've been playing a lot of county cricket, and he kept sledging me, kept saying, it's not like county cricket anymore. You're not facing, he referenced Timmy Murtagh, who was my teammate at Middlesex, who bowled kind of medium pace kind of thing. So I kept saying that. And then, yeah, he was getting all the runs at the time, but over the kind of 10-match 2 series, I picked him in the last innings, and then so I made sure I gave him plenty back in that last innings. But yeah, he was.
I've just overtaken you in head-to-head run scoring.
So how good was he? Yeah, I was smashing that series, mate. Don't worry about that.
You only tell stories when you do well. So yeah, that's the other thing. But yeah, look, very good player, and obviously had some incredible highlights, and yeah, thoroughly deserving of a great career and a good send-off.
Yeah. On that, you mentioned that 2013 series there where you came back in. I was talking last week on the show about that. For me, was the first one in recent memory of like Australia picking sort of like more of a horses for courses policy, where you'd scored stacks and stacks of runs at county cricket, and you did really well for Australia when you came back into the side. I mean, and then there's this kind of conversation in England at the moment, Buck, where they were, they left out Stuart Broad of the first Test match of the summer because they're thinking about, Wood and Archer opening the bowling at the Gabba in 18 months' time. Like it must be a fine balance as a coach or as a selector, where you're trying to win games of cricket now, but you've also got to think about it in 18 months' time, which is like, well, the big series is in Australia. The big series always is Australia and England. So like, how do you get that balance right between picking the games for now to win the games now, but also planning for the future?
Didn't I answer this question? But yeah, I think it's look, it's tough. I think the interesting thing about that England team is, and what I've heard as well, is what did they actually find out? They didn't really find anything about their bowling attack. They found out that Broad and Anderson get it done in England conditions. So, yeah. So what's going to happen when they do come to Australia? I guess they wanted to go down that path, but it didn't quite work out. Stuart Broad wasn't particularly happy when he got left out either. So, yeah, it's a tough one, because the other thing is, it's not like your national side's a development side either. It's kind of, you should have to earn the right to get in there, not just about giving people games. So, yeah, it's a really difficult one, and that's probably where we've got to make sure that the feeder system, that the Shield cricket and county cricket over there are as strong as they possibly can be.
Buck, 2 players of interest to the batting group in Australia is Will Pucovski and Pete Hanscom. Just on Pucovski, how close do you think he is to breaking into that side? Where is he at in terms of his ambitions there, and what will you be doing to assist that? And then with Hanscom, is he going to come out of the popping crease and get on the front dog?
I've always had this thing about with Hanscom. I'm not quite sure. It's like I listen to people who say, why doesn't he just stand a foot further forward or a yard further forward, as if the bowlers are then going to be bowling full tosses? The bowlers then would see where he's standing and say, okay, I'll bring my length back. I've never quite understood that logic, but someone might have to explain it to me. But back to Pucovski, I think he's look, I think there's definitely a touch of class there, and people see it. A lot of times when you see people, how they make runs, that's kind of what you're interested in. And he just has that kind of calmness and composure that really stands out, that you think, okay, he could probably deal with a lot of the international pressures. there's clearly, he's got some other issues that he's got to work through. And look, all of us, here are just there to support him and seeing how we can manage a lot of those issues with him. But yeah, from my point of view, I just want to keep developing that kind of that composure. It's like he's an old head on young shoulders, and that really sticks out. So that's a real strength. And then with Pete, I guess one of the conversations I've had with him a little bit is how do you score runs when you're captain of your kind of your state side as well? Because that's actually a challenge in itself, because you end up kind of thinking a little bit too externally, too much about other people and the team and stuff like that. Forget that your first job is to score runs yourself. So I'll just be trying to take as much pressure off him as possible, and allow him to make sure he's focused on what he needs to do.
When Higgos wanted to talk for a bit about Ian Bell for some reason, he mentioned the 2013 series, and I'm just mindful that back then, the Australian coaching setup was, it was Darren Lehman. Was he in by then, or was in soon after? And Clark was the captain, and it had a very had a particular style and a particular tinge to it. And now when we look at the Australian coaching setup, you've got guys like yourself and Gillespie and Woodhill and Andrew McDonald, and guys who kind of are prepared, I think, to think outside the box and maybe have a little bit less of that macho kind of alpha edge to a point. I'm saying you can't alpha people. We definitely can, but I'm digressing. Yeah, don't read into that. Yeah. But how would you compare the style of person that formerly was coaching Australia and involved in the setup versus now? Has there been a market shift?
I think there is. It's probably more about developing relationships and helping people rather than telling people. I think if you only have to look at AFL, that those kind of days of those halftime sprays are probably a little bit numbered. So it's a bit the same in cricket, and in many respects, cricket's a long way behind in coaching, because it kind of really only has taken off in cricket over the last 15 to 20 years, I guess. Before that, it was a bit like the captain would just run the whole show. So, there's still a bit of way for us to go. And but yeah, it's probably more about man management. Saying that, I played under some really good coaches who that was their strength as well. But maybe there's a bit more awareness about that.
You mentioned AFL there, Buck. I mean, how much AFL chat was there in your job interview? No doubt that would have helped get you over the line. How much Aussie rules thinking are you planning to incorporate into your Victorian cricket coaching?
Well, you have to be prepared to throw it in a fair bit with this group. I know. I've said it before. When I moved over from Perth to Victoria and played even local cricket, they all thought they were just AFL players, or wannabe AFL players, and that's how they played. Like the sledging and the carry on and that kind of stuff. So
get around it.
Up and about. You've got to use those references as much as possible. So
everyone get a touch.
I did throw it in the interview. It might have helped.
Credit to the boys.
We'll leave it at that, Buck. Thanks for that conversation, and I'm sure Chapel Street will be up and humming soon, as will the Victorian cricket team. Thank you very much.
Well, I bumped into you on Chapel Street the last time I saw you, didn't I, Sammy? So no doubt I'll see you wandering around there as well.
It was a good exchange, I felt, but I sort of went in for the elbow tap, and you're like, "What the hell's that? What have you done there?" So you outfitted me then. You outfitted us with a phone call today, but just keeping the hierarchy solid.
Got to be consistent.
Cheers, Buck.
Good on you, boys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.